Caitlin Clark could be returning this week after all. Guys, for this one here.
All right, prepare yourself, because it appears like Caitlin Clark may be making a court appearance this week. Our breaking news comes directly from Indiana, folks. And believe me, the WNBA is now talking about the Fever's recent roster change.
It's going to be scary from a backcourt standpoint, because the two of them with the ball in their hands, without the ball.
That's a threat.
And as a post player, your eyes have to light up. Because if there's that much attention from the backcourt,
they're going to find you.
If you set screens, if you set early drags in transition,
Suddenly, Caitlin Clark's name is once again in the public eye. Fans are genuinely going crazy trying to figure out what this means. Would she be able to return to the court at last? Everything you need to know will be explained by me. First, though, what are your thoughts? Does this action officially mark the beginning of Clark's comeback?
2025, according to the WNBA transactions page, the Indiana Fever released Kyra Lambert. So if that is indeed the end of Kyra Lambert's Indiana Fever tenure, it did not last very long. It was just last week we were figuring out who Kyra Lambert was and what.
The kicker is here. Kyra Lambert was formally released by the Indiana Fever. That's just a small transaction tucked away in the sports section for the majority of casual fans, isn't it? But this seems like a huge surprise to Fever diehards and, to be honest, the whole WNBA. Unless you're preparing for a major roster change, you just don't cut a player in the middle of the season. You guessed it. Caitlin Clark is the one name at the core of the controversy.
Maxwell, and she didn't even get a thank you post. She didn't even get a thank you post from the Indiana Fever. They didn't even get a thank you, Kyra Maxwell. She didn't get a thank you post. But yeah, a lot of people are celebrating this because they...
Let's not mince words. Recently, Clark has not been on the court. To be honest, we've all been on edge for every game she's missed. The rumors were further heightened by the fact that she did not even accompany the team on their trip last week. The key question is whether this is all part of a larger scheme to reintroduce her into the spotlight at the ideal time, or whether the Fever is simply being extremely careful. Because there is now a roster place available due to Lambert's departure. And all the evidence, including the math, leads directly to Caitlin Clark, unless Indiana has some top-secret agreement with an international athlete that no one is aware of.
I know Rudy from Come On Now, the podcast. Shout out to Rudy. Rudy did a whole entire video breaking down what Holly Rose said. Is Caitlin Clark coming back within the next week or so? I personally wouldn't bring her back against the Minnesota Lynx, but also, depending on the severity of Sophie Cunningham's injury, I might not bring her back, period, for the rest of the season. I might play if Sophie can't come back, if it's not serious, then maybe we are talking about Caitlin Clark coming back. I did say when she went down and this period of time started to get longer and longer and longer and longer, by the time...
However, WNBA supporters are not simply accepting this at face value. Oh no, people are already posting the wildest notions you can think of on social media. Some people believe that Kennedy Carter is joining the Fever, which is completely illogical given that she recently signed with another team. Some others think Indiana is only attempting to hide Sophie Cunningham's medical problems. However, when you cut through the clutter and examine the facts, all of the arrows lead to the same obvious conclusion. The homecoming of Caitlin Clark is far closer than anyone anticipated. Let's be honest, please. Over the course of 2 games, Kyra Lambert played 1 minute. That's all. That player isn't on rotation. Not even a crucial piece of equipment. She served as a warm body for drills. She got a shot from the Fever. It was unsuccessful. They're now going on. All right. However, what's really crazy is the timing. This was something they could have done weeks ago. Why now, then? Why against the Minnesota Lynx just before 2 of their most important games of the season?
Question is, when? Are we really bringing her back against the Minnesota Lynx? Would that be the smartest idea? No, not really. Not really. Let's take a look. The Indiana Fever have been playing through the 2025 season under head coach Stephanie White. Indiana is led by Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Sophie Cunningham, and several other stars. While they have one of the best rosters in the league, they've been missing Clark. Clark has missed a majority of the season, currently working through a groin injury. The last time Clark was on the floor was a matchup against the Connecticut Sun on July 16th, while the Fever were on.
Let me tell you, after a month of the season, the Lins are in complete control. With a 28-5 record and a dominant lead in the league, Indiana understands deep down that they just cannot function without their star power. Indeed, they have successfully fought their way back up to 6th place in the rankings, which is rather remarkable considering how bad things first appeared. However, they must have Caitlin Clark on the court if they are to have any chance of making the playoffs. For a period, she has the ability to influence a game more than any other player on that squad. Oh, the front office of the Fever is aware of it.
A comment that Scott Agnes made on his YouTube channel. Scott Agnes was replying to someone else's comment who said, "Just can't wait until Cece is back. She's the most dynamic, electric player in the WNBA. Great job, Lexi." And then Scott Agnes replied and he said, "Have patience, at least several more weeks." Now, Scott Agnes is a beat reporter for the Indiana Fever. He has been covering them relentlessly all season, and we have gotten a lot of great information from Scott over the season. And I actually went to his YouTube channel and just kind of skimmed through the comments to see if there was anything else. There was one other reply where he was replying to someone and basically said, like, "You have to trust me or just trust me." It's up to viewers' discretion. It's up to the fans if they want to believe what he's saying, but several more weeks pretty much puts Caitlin Clark to coming back at the very.
This is the query that everyone is muttering. Is Indiana actually going to start playing Caitlin Clark again against the league's top team? Or is this really a smokescreen to give us all optimism as the medical personnel attempts to prolong this? It seems very dangerous to me to put Clark back on the floor against Minnesota at this time. It's blatant baptism by fire. You're putting her in the lion's den with the expectation that she will emerge with some spectacular passes and 25 points. The Fever must be more intelligent than that, don't they? However, this is the Fever that we are discussing. Fans of the same squad are often questioning whether Stephanie White and Amber Cox are even on the same page. Half the time, it seems like one of them is frantically trying to win right now while the other is preparing for the far future. To be honest, that misunderstanding manifests itself on the court. Cutting Lambert isn't a big deal in and of itself, but when you consider Clark's possible comeback, it suddenly seems like a crazy concoction of optimism and desperation, which, let's face it, is precisely what Indiana has been delivering all season. Remember that Clark is no longer a wide-eyed rookie. She is a second-year student. She has endured the turmoil. She has witnessed the brutality of this league when every veteran declares that a player's body is open season. She is aware of the toll it takes on her body, the commotion in the media, and the constant circus that accompanies her. Being healthy isn't the only reason to return today. She needs to demonstrate that she can lead a squad through situations that would break most players. Naturally, fans are grabbing hold of every hint. Upon the Fever's ascent from 7th to 6th place in the rankings, everyone said, "Clark's coming back." It's as though the rankings miraculously reveal what goes on behind the scenes. It's a lovely idea, but to be honest, Indiana hasn't done well without her. Those rankings only serve to emphasize how urgently they require her back. And the hard schedule, utterly vicious. Minnesota twice in a row, followed by Seattle, the Sparks, the Valkyries, Phoenix, Chicago, and Washington, with a dash of extra spice. When would you like to return if you're Clark? You don't want to play Minnesota in your first game. That will undoubtedly give you a headache. Seattle? Not at all. They will personalize it. Thus, perhaps the Valkyries or Sparks feel easier to control. Here's the problem, though. The huge concern is that the Fever might not wait that long. The most absurd thing is that while all of this, followers are obsessed with social media, refreshing Scott Agnes' page, checking the Fever's former account every 5 minutes, and blasting up every insider for tidbits of information. And you know what? No one is speaking. Not Sophie Cunningham, not Chloe BBY, and not the coaches. Still, which just makes it worse since there are two things that quiet in this league may entail. Either a huge bombshell is going to be dropped, or they are concealing bad news. And that bombshell is desperately needed by the WNBA. There aren't many compelling narratives in this league. And at the moment, Caitlin Clark is the only player that actually does it every night. Whether you like her or not, she draws attention. She sells tickets. She fills arenas. So, don't count on a low-key publicity statement if Indiana is at last prepared to welcome her back. Be prepared for fireworks. Be prepared for highlight reels. The league will undoubtedly take advantage of this to get as much attention as possible. Here's the cynical aspect of it, though. What if the fever or lingering optimism serves as a diversion from their actual issue? Fans will have something to think about when Lambert is cut. Yes, but that doesn't address the team's shallowness. It doesn't resolve the coaching ambiguity, and it doesn't make up for Sophie Cunningham's dubious reputation. It only creates a single roster space. And what's the purpose if Clark doesn't have that spot? Nothing will change if you sign another benchwarmer. The irritation really starts to set in at that point. Too many times, fans have experienced this roller coaster. They have witnessed the fever utterly collapse during critical occasions, mishandle rotations, and fumble player development. Now that Clark's recovery is uncertain, every choice becomes more significant. Indiana may face a nasty reaction if this is handled improperly. This is the point at which everything becomes incredibly clear. When the Indiana Fever finally begin to make major decisions and move players about, Kyra Lambert is the player they release the most. Let's face it, this move was never about Kyra. I don't mean to offend her. Until Caitlin Clark was prepared to take back the seat at the table, she was essentially only holding it. That is the WNBA's harsh reality. Half of these roster changes are more about who we must eliminate to make room for the star than they are about strategy. And who is the celebrity? Clark, Caitlin. Caitlin Clark, always. Fans of the Fever